Hi everybody. I'm back with a short video this time. Actually, all you're going to see is me talking. Uh, I did my first mistake. Actually, first big screw up. Okay. I showed you the videos where I strung my fingers and my hands with the string and put the wire through. Well, I got to the point where it was time to put the fingertips on, and I printed them fine, and I glued the base on fine, and uh, then I ran into trouble, as Guy says, be careful, you're going to break the wires. Well, I broke a couple of the wires, but I managed to do a splice and hide it inside the finger so that it wasn't a real issue. And I glued on the little plates, the copper plates, and I soldered everything down. And all the time I did this, I studied real careful, and I was making sure that I had everything mounted right. I looked to make sure I had the joint. I knew which side the joint was supposed to be on, and all that good stuff. And then what did I do? I proceeded to glue it all on backwards. So I had the fingertips glued on backwards. Well, I had the foam in, the tip on. So I played with it and tested it a little bit while I had it together. And I noticed that as I squeezed the fingertips, then I had a slow and inconsistent recovery of the foam, allowing that fingertip to come back out. It was, it was going to take a while to recover from squeezing a finger. And when I put my ohm meter on the wires, uh, I also noticed that I had a very, very inconsistent read to the ohmic value changes. I never got the same reading twice on any finger. It was erratic. And as far as I was concerned, the only thing you were going to be able to say was, uh, yeah, I've touched something. No, I haven't touched anything. I wasn't of the mindset that I would ever see anything that would work in any way as an accurate, semi-accurate way of saying I've squeezed this hard or I need to squeeze a little harder. Uh, so I was disappointed in the performance of it. And having made the mistake, I was also frustrated. And so frustrated that uh, I, I was ready to quit. I said, this is stupid. I give up. The frustration was there. And it was my fault. It wasn't the robot's fault. It was me. I screwed up completely. So I cut the ends of the fingers off and tapped the brass rods out, and removed the end of the fingertips. And went on to the forum and looked up the problem of the fingers. And actually, I saw in the forum where one guy was writing in, I'm so frustrated I'm going to quit. And of course, the group came back with words of encouragement. No, don't quit. We all hit those days where we had that frustration. Give it a break. Walk away. Come back later. Right? But don't quit. So I folded up shop and walked away and came back, and I was feeling better, and I got over my uh, self-embarrassment, for lack of a better term, of how badly I'd screwed that up. I mean, I felt silly now, having studied so hard to make sure I was putting those fingers on right, and then turn around, glued them on backwards. So I got past that point of frustration, but I did decide that I wasn't going to use the foam fingertips, that it wasn't worth the effort to rework all that. So I cut the strings out, I cut the wires out, pulled the wires completely out, and uh, learned how to use Cura in my AutoCAD program so I could call in an STL file and open it up in AutoCAD. And I cut out everything from the fingertips that I didn't need. And I printed, just the last joint and the standard fingertip itself, so that it cut down on my printing time. And having done that for all 5 fingers, I was able to put them all 5 on the table and print them all in one go. So I had the new fingertips, and I put those back on and restrung with the string, and actually have it working pretty good again. I did notice that I did have a freer movement without the wires in there. Though it was working with the wires in, you could hear the servos. They seemed to draw a little more current trying to pull against the fingers with the wires in. They work nicely now. So I got that all done. A couple of things that I would point out for you guys that maybe that want to continue to use those foam tips. Be careful of the broken wires. They break real easy. They're very skinny, tiny little wires. And the knot size. When you're working on that thumb, you got a great big old hole there to tie a knot and hide a knot in. Right? But when you get down on that pinky, you got just a little chamber to put a knot in. And you have to be really, really careful. And Guy is saying, hey, put several knots in there to make sure it doesn't undo. Well, I put a double knot in, and I was struggling to get the fingertip on. I use super glue, so if I were to redo it again, I would do it with a single knot and super glue, or I would experiment with running the strings in the reverse order from what the tutorial says, and maybe run them from the finger side in with one long string, right, and fold it in half so that there's actually no knot in the end of the finger. And then, when you pull it out and get it all stretched tight, then super glue that end of the string to the base. That would eliminate that hassle that I had with the knot fitting down in that little cavity. And of course, the soldering the little plates on, there's not much you can do there. You're just going to have to suffer through that if you're going to use it. I don't know what to tell you about consistency. I don't know. Maybe others have gotten better results, but when I tested mine, I was not happy. So I wouldn't do it again. While I was also doing this, I, of course, printed out the mold to make the latex fingertips coverings, right? And I bought the 2-part epoxy as he recommended so that it would harden. And I poured it in, and I filled it about halfway like he suggested, and I dropped the top part down in, and man, I got overflow. It flowed everywhere coming out, and I was sure, man, I had that cavity full up. But I let it sit a day and a half, I think it was, and then I pulled it apart, and the smaller fingers, they seemed to came out pretty good. I could have made workable fingertips out of those, but the index finger, the middle finger, and the thumb all had air holes in it, and I was surprised. I really was. I mean, I had latex flowing out everywhere, and I was sure that I had those cavities well full of latex. So I had that mess too, And again, another little discouraging moment. Then coupled that with the fact that I glued the fingertips on backwards, I guess you could see how bad a day I was having. So I would just tell you, if you're going to do the fingertips, really double check, really take your time. Uh, I just screwed up. It was my mistake. I just thought I'd share that sometimes even the best of plans don't work. So with that, I'll say goodbye, and I'll catch you pretty quickly. I've been working on the bicep, so I'll do a little video on my bicep here pretty shortly too. See you later.